Welcome to The Hero Maker. In this series, we follow Richard's appearances on other shows as he talks about how to grow, play, think, and live like a hero. Join him as he discusses thoughts, principles, and life lessons, all essential for anyone building their heroic brand. All that and more, only on The Hero Maker.
Let's just talk about this amazing service that you offer. Like, how did you come up with an idea like, hey, let's build this platform where everyone else can use it because it will streamline their process. And this is related for all the podcasters out there who are busy podcasters. They're running businesses based on their podcast. And that's the service that Richard has created. So tell me about that. How did the idea came about it, and what process or what was the journey going through it to creating, and from an idea point of view, now you have an execution where some people can go and utilize this service.
Yeah, so it actually starts with my podcast, right? So I have a podcast called The Hero Show, and that was actually a really, it was a, what do you call it? It was like a heart message for me, something that I really wanted to get out and share with the world. So The Hero Show is based on this whole cultural sort of weirdness we have, and particularly in Western civilization, that entrepreneurship is evil, and entrepreneurs are evil, and profit is evil. Right? If you go and watch any cartoon ever, the bad guy is always some, entrepreneur in a suit who's dumping oil in the ocean to kill the ducks, right? Like that's pretty much how entrepreneurship is taught to children and taught culturally. It's always really bothered me. And so the Hero Show is sort of my response to that. That, we rightly call veterans and doctors and firefighters and police officers heroes, but we wrongly call entrepreneurs villains. Right? Because literally everything in your life that you've touched or you interacted with today was at some point touched and handled by an entrepreneur, or you wouldn't have it, right? And so entrepreneurs, I think, are also heroes. And so that show is about showing entrepreneurs themselves, showing them that they're heroes, right? And that they're heroes in this life. So that's what that podcast was about. And I had that idea in 2015 to get that show started. So I actually sat down and I got a couple of entrepreneur friends and people together to actually get the first couple of episodes done. And I recorded the first 8 episodes of that podcast. And then I tried to do the rest of the work that goes into the podcast, right? After you hit the stop record button, you have to edit the videos and edit the audios, and you have to get the transcriptions done. You have to get all the stuff done to publish it. I managed to get 3 of the 8 episodes I recorded published before I realized if I continued doing that, I was going to starve, because I still needed to do work that was driving business, right, for me, right? I still needed to do the actual business development work. And the podcast was just taking up so much of my time that even though I loved the message and I loved what I was doing, I couldn't dedicate the resources to it at that point in my business, right? I didn't have the extra time or money to put into driving all of that. The way that I wanted to be, right? To do it at a really high level and actually make an impact with that message. So it sat sort of on the vine and just sat there and did nothing for, 4 years? 2 or 3 years? Something like that, all the way up till beginning of last year, 2019. And when I decided I really needed to actually do something with that message if I was ever going to get it out. And so I sat down and I hired my first employee. His name's Mark. He's fantastic, by the way, if you ever get a chance to interact with him. And started actually documenting the processes that we needed to go through for editing each podcast for video, editing each podcast for audio, getting our commercials and intros and outros and stuff on all the podcasts, and then figuring out what needed to be written in terms of, transcriptions and show notes and, YouTube descriptions and Facebook descriptions and LinkedIn descriptions and Twitter and, tags and all the things that need to be written for each episode, and then figuring out all the graphics that need to get it done and turning them all into how can we get this done systematically each time. And then making sure okay, where are our major publishing platforms? How can we get everything published to those pretty easily every time? And then not only do we have our publishing platforms, but you also have your announcement platforms, like which places do we want to make sure we announce each episode on, whether that's, your Facebook page, your Facebook groups, or your LinkedIn pages, or your SMS group, your Facebook bot list, or your email list, making sure each of those places is actually getting the episode announcements, and then also making sure that it happens every single time without fail, and primarily that I didn't have to do it. Because if I had to do it, it wasn't getting done. I already proved that for 3 years. So we built all of those systems and processes. It cost me probably about $40,000 of development time in terms of building systems and processes for that. And there is a lot of human effort that's involved in a lot of that, because there's a lot of creativity. And at this point in time, you can't really replace creativity with robots. So there's a lot of human creativity involved in each one of those steps, but there's a lot of stuff that can be automated. We built a lot of those automations as well. And so we did that for my show. And it was about, October last year? I had a group of my mastermind buddies together, and they all sat down, and I showed them what I had been doing with my podcast, and they were like, "You're sitting on a gold mine here." And I was like, "With what?" And they were like, "You should offer that as a service to other podcasters who have the same problem you have." And I was like, "You're right, I should." And that day was actually the birth of pushbuttonpodcasts.com. I actually bought the domain and set the website up while we were there at the mastermind group, and have spent the last 6 months working on how we do customer onboarding and getting a couple of test clients. So we got our first couple of test clients and worked out a lot of the bugs and beat the hell out of our systems for having other clients work on it and see where our failure points were. And we found all those and squashed all those bugs. And we're ready to go to market with it now and actually help other podcasters who are using their podcast to push a message and to, as business development for, driving leads to their main income generator, right? So whether they're, chiropractors or they're coaches or they're consultants, whatever it is they do, if they're using a podcast as a way to drive sales in their main business, Push Button Podcast is really designed to serve them. So they don't have to do all of the work for their podcast. They can just show up, do what they love, and we'll handle the rest.
If you want to hear the rest of this discussion, please check out the link to the full episode in the description below.